Welcome back, my friends, to Common Ground Conversations. I'm Dr. JoNeil Conley, and along with my colleague and friend Bonnie Nussbaum, we are having conversations with each other and with you about things that are happening in the world. We bring, I think we documented 80 years of coaching and counseling and all of that kind of, and just plain old life experiences. The things that both of us have lived through and been through, some good, some not so good. But the bottom line is we learned from it. And our goal is for you to see us as we navigate some of these conversations using strategies from our coaching programs, from our counseling. And from today, you're going to see us use a resource from an organization called Braver Angels. Stick along to the end. There'll be a QR code where you can join this organization. And I have found it to be, I don't even have a word, but I do have a word to describe their work.
I would call it progressive. They're very focused on bridging gaps, bringing people together, finding common ground, very much like we're practicing, finding common ground, and heart and soul people, just very heart and soul people.
And what I think, what I like is they call a spade a spade. There you go. So we've given everybody a framework. Now we're gonna walk
topic.
Yes, but let's remember the 4 steps: listen, acknowledge, pivot, perspective. So I'm going to bring it up. So at President Trump's inauguration, the bishop from the Episcopal Church, pronounce her
Budde.
Budde, in my opinion, and I'm going to give my opinion, was derogatory, insulting, and that was not what that church service was designed to do. It was designed to pray over the president. And in my mind, this bishop was opportunistic and took a chance when the world was looking at her to give her opinion. Now, having said that, I agree with her opinion. In my mind, that was the wrong ass place to do it.
Okay, so what I heard you say was that you were unhappy with how Bishop Budde chose to address the issue with the president at that church service.
Unhappy is not the right word.
Okay, what word would you put?
Aggravated, annoyed, ashamed, embarrassed, pissed off. Who the hell do you think you are? This isn't what this is for.
Aggravated, annoyed, pissed off. Who do you think you are? Okay, so did I get that?
I mean, that's a little bit different than unhappy, because I was more than unhappy.
Absolutely. And thank you for correcting that so that I had a better sense of how intense that feeling is for you.
I was ashamed for the church. I was ashamed.
Ashamed for the church.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So now here's the point where, and I'm gonna step out for a minute and then we'll step back in. So here's the point where I'm kind of assessing, is there more that JoNeil wants to say about this? Does she need to vent more steam about this? Or is this an appropriate time for me to step in for the pivot? It could be. It might not be.
Because you and I have quasi had this conversation, it's not like this is virginal territory for us.
Right.
But as we display it, that would be perfectly appropriate because, and I'm going to jump aside here, because sometimes you have people who have a reaction and you think, boy, that's way out of proportion for what this situation is. And so just being with the situation for a second and kind of allowing.
Right. You don't want to rush it.
And another thing we didn't talk about earlier is when that amygdala hijack happens, when your nervous system is all on fire, sometimes saying something too quickly doesn't allow the person to at least even calm their system down. So I think remember as well.
And sometimes in repeating what you've heard, it can help that system begin to ratchet down. Okay, she's getting it. She's hearing me.
Yeah. And the wrong thing to say is, well, JoNeil, you're out of your mind. She was perfectly fine in doing that. Because can you see how those conversations, but we're modeling a different way of doing it.
Yes. Yes. So we've done the listen and we've done the acknowledge. And one of the things I'm looking to assess is, did my acknowledge land? And notice, when I missed and I chose the word angry,
Unhappy.
she corrected unhappy.
Unhappy.
She corrected me and she laid out other words so that then I could feed those back to her.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take a chance at the pivot.
Okay.
And if she's not really done, if she isn't feeling like she's been heard enough, she's probably not going to accept my pivot. And she may keep going. And then I can step back a little bit, listen some more, acknowledge some more, etc. One of the things I want to point out with this is it does tend to slow the process way down.
Yeah.
And those who are addicted to doing battle are not going to like that.
Yeah. Good
because
point.
Because they want to get all up in each other's business.
And if I was dead set on you hearing my point of view and I didn't care what you, then I would still be riled up. I would still, and again, if you'd asked me that day, you might have gotten a different response. We're now 2 weeks out, kind of a thing too. So, we're trying to share real life things that happen in our world. So
yes. So now I'm going to attempt the pivot. So, and I want to, because there was a fair amount of energy behind the words that she picked, rather than being perfunctory or intense about my pivot, I'm going to take a step back. I would watch my body language. If I'm in like this, that's probably not going to help. If I stay back and I leave my arms down, so I'm going to try this one. Let's see how it goes. Would you be open to hearing my thoughts on this?
I guess.
And notice the reluctance there. Can you hear the reluctance there?
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to take another round the other way first. Are there some other things you'd like to put on the table with that first?
I think you've heard enough.
Okay. All right. So,
because if this was real life, I'd be sitting there going, oh, let's just wait to see what she has to say about this. Can you see how that stuff plays out?
Yes.
Again, somebody go, all right, bring it on. Go ahead.
Okay. Yep. And I'm going to watch the body language, because if I'm getting a whole lot of this, I'm probably not going to put a whole lot of what I think or feel out there. But so first thing that I think is important for us to remember is it was Unity Day. That was part of about her sermon, it was Unity Day. So looking at things as the one. Yeah, this isn't the source of my view, but it was a source I went to get some greater understanding. So when you had the reaction to this and we're pretty upset, I was like, oh, because that's not at all what I was hearing from my friends or, my circle, whatever. So I went to an Episcopal bishop or an Episcopal priest who's married to an Episcopal bishop who they know Mariann Budde. And so I was asking her about this. And Sue said to me, the whole point of this was Unity Day. This is a tradition that up until this point, it's been a race for the White House, basically, up until a vote, right? And typically this event is designed to shift the gears from we've been competing as Democrats and Republicans to now we have the person who's in this office.
Okay.
And now we need to shift gears to we are the United States of America.
Okay.
That's the
history.
A very
visceral reaction to that, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now I get to decide, am I going to listen to the visceral reaction or am I going to speak my truth? I'm going to go with the visceral reaction. Why? Because she's not going to be hearing anything else I say until she gets this addressed.
Yeah.
So, okay, tell me about your visceral reaction.
Well, I talked to the Episcopalians. What about the Presbyterians and all the other people who were watching that, who didn't see it from the Episcopalian point of view? And if your point being is that we're going to go to unity, that wasn't unity to me.
Can you explain to me when she's asking for mercy for human beings, what's not moving us more toward unity there?
Well, and again, I had an aha while we're having this conversation.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Is that me, the general public, not being Episcopalian, believed that that entire service was to well wish our new president and have God's mercy over him and his decisions and all of that, not to tell him what his decisions should be.
My perspective on that is she was asking. She was asking. She made it very clear that she was asking for mercy. Asking for mercy for people who didn't have much of a voice. So I'd like to continue if it's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Because I'd like to share with you the background behind becoming a bishop in the Episcopal Church. I'm not Episcopalian either.
Yeah.
But the background of becoming an Episcopalian bishop, they have vows that they take. Their vows include things like protecting the faith, preaching the gospel, being the chief shepherd, letting no sheep go lost. This is her church. It's her job. She's asking him for mercy. She's doing exactly what she was trained to do.
I still think it was the wrong way to do it.
Absolutely. I hear that you believe it was the wrong way to do it. I'd like to share a little more about why I believe it was appropriate.
Can we take a little time out here because I have to tell our folks. So over this past week, I've had this internal conversation, but I think really, and I think we do have this. And
Absolutely.
And I had this conversation that this is how I see her and this is how she sees her. And here's the bottom line. Neither of that is true.
No, we don't know her.
What I thought you thought, what you thought I thought, what I thought she thought, none of that is true. So I think,
and it's all through filters.
And that's the conversation that I don't think, and we don't allow ourselves, because the work that I've done with outward mindset says anything that you believe that you know that somebody knows, it's a lie. You don't know. You don't know.
Right.
And so the information that you're bringing forth is not, again, I probably am not going to move to the place where I think she was okay doing that. Let's just go on record as having said that. But I am going to go to the place where, boy, I see how you feel that way, how you think that way. So.
Right. Yes. And I always think, isn't it interesting when there's someone who is relatively liberal, married to someone who's relatively conservative, what kind of interesting conversations do they have over dinner?
my husband and I disagree a lot, and we're closer together than we are apart, but there are some issues that we are other ends of the spectrum. And what's interesting is that where we hear our news from are two different and that's something I think I
let's acknowledge that.
Yes. And
please.
I deliberately go to where he's listening to his morning news and sit and have coffee and hear. So I know what he's hearing. And I don't think we give each other that, grace isn't the word, but it's like, I know I want to live with this man. We can still have disagreements, but I guess I kind of need to know where he's getting that point of view from. Exactly.
And maybe how it's been delivered to him.
Sure.
Oh, other things that I would like to say about this, there's two other chunks that I think are useful. One is, if we look at the basics, if we look at the Golden Rule, the 10 Commandments, being in right relationship with God, she was doing that in the things that she was asking for. Again, she was asking. She was not telling. She was not yelling. And physically, she's a really, she reminds you, tiny person.
Yep.
I also want to add in the piece that this was not her first rodeo. with the president?
The current president.
The current president, yes. She
And very anti in her move or activity.
Okay, so now here, notice that she interrupted me.
I did.
I get to decide how I want to manage that, right?
Yes.
I can say, can you give me a minute to let me finish what I was going to say?
Absolutely.
Or I can let it go and
all the things.
All the things. But it's useful if you know ahead of time how you want to handle stuff like that.
Yes.
I have several friends who are very, I'm going to use the word disruptive in that way.
Yeah.
I oftentimes don't get to finish what I'm saying and I derail pretty easily. So, and yeah, I've had to have conversations about, can you hang on for a minute? Can you let me just finish this so I don't lose my train of thought?
Yep. See, people, you're seeing it in real life.
Yes, here we are. We're working it through. So, Bishop Budde in 2020 also had an unpleasant circumstance in dealing with President Trump. And I think were I her, it's not like that would have left my mind in 2025 as I'm doing this traditional thing that has been done for a long time with regard to new presidents coming into office. So, it was the event where and her perspective on it, I mean, the behind the scenes stuff is very interesting. So at that point, there were people who were mourning the death of George Floyd, and there was again, the church is a central fixture in Washington, D.C.
It's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
And there were many people out peacefully protesting what happened with George Floyd. She's at the church. All of a sudden, she starts getting a bazillion phone calls, text messages. Everything gets lit up. What she's telling this story. This is before the current events have happened. Being in the church with, she wrote a book about bravery, being willing to be brave, and she said, there have been many decisive moments in my life, but few as public as what happened on June 1st, 2020. To be honest, I didn't have time to think. Urged on by horrified church colleagues who were watching the president walk to St. John's Church on live television and lighting up my phone with text, I managed to find my voice and speak. Basically, that was when he showed up at the church, stood on church property. His daughter handed him a Bible, and he was doing what's been since called a photo op. Not my term, someone else's term. But she made it clear that she didn't appreciate him using the church as a backdrop. So again, there were people, you can find information on what happened, and there's actually a moment by moment sort of blow by blow thing that I thought was pretty interesting, describing the events. But it was interesting to read her perspective on it because we didn't see any of that and we didn't hear any of that until she's coming out with the book now. So my second point, the other thing that I think is valuable here, because some of the words that you used to describe Bishop Budde's speaking to the president, vice president, all those who were gathered, were words that were also then applied to the president based on his tweets after the fact, or Truth Social. It was on Truth Social. Called her a so-called bishop, as if he gets to decide whether or not she's truly a bishop, and also called her, what was it, a left-leaning liberal Trump hater, something, something. And she basically said, I don't feel like I hate anybody. I work very hard not to be, in that position. But to me, it felt, and the same way you felt, it was disrespectful for her to address it the way she did. I felt it was highly disrespectful and rude how he went on Truth Social, called her a so-called bishop, called her a left-leaning, blah, blah, blah. He didn't use libtard, but so again, different perspectives, different views of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been interesting, hasn't it been interesting watching what's come out since then?
Mm-hmm.
People being called to respond. Well, how are you, Catholic Church, how are you feeling about this? And, Presbyterian Church, how are you feeling about this? And are you going to stand a claim, or are you going to not say anything, or what are you going to do? It's been interesting watching the dust afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I'm biting my tongue.
To what end?
No, not to interrupt. No, because I'm it's like and I was jotting things down, and
I
that's
saw that.
and that is a learned behavior. And
I
you
do it.
you do it
too.
better than I do it, because and my husband would tell you, like, let me finish what I'm saying. And so I'm guilty of that before. And so yes, I hear your perspective. I hear your perspective.
So I'm going to ask you, tell me what you think you heard. What did you hear me say?
Well, going back to the sheep shepherd role, protecting those left out, and all of that. And I think those are fabulous roles. I will not move off the position that I don't think that was the right place to do it. I agree with all
I
of the
hear you.
that you said.
I hear you.
I felt, and I still do feel, like she was not brave. She was opportunistic.
Are you okay with me asking you a question about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Here's her opportunity. Opportunistic, brave, whatever. She's standing in the pulpit. She says to him, I'm asking for mercy. For basically, for the people who don't have a voice, I'm asking for mercy. Had she not said any of what she said, hang on a second, I got
No,
a
I just
question
was
for
thinking
you.
I'm going to write it down.
Had she not said any of what she said, and she thought to herself, I'll call him later and make my point, do you believe he would have taken that phone call?
I would hope he would have, but I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that fact. My aha that I was having while I was biting my tongue, and that's just human nature, it's who we are. I would be interested to hear what was said at other services. Has anybody compared the homily or whatever it was she was delivering at the last whatevers?
That would be fabulous.
I just thought I wrote that down, because if they were of the same tenor, then it would have been expected that she would say those things.
I think an interesting piece would also be, um, is there a, I'm not finding the right word. Tonal is the word that's coming to me. A tonal difference between those homilies.
I don't know
Directed,
if is the word, but
I believe it is. I
Okay.
believe it is directed toward a president who's of a similar mindset as the bishop who's speaking,
Yeah.
versus a president who may not be.
That just came to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, if we were dissecting this for sociological purposes, so we would
Yep.
do that. We would do that.
Right.
You and I am responding from me, private citizen, watching this on TV, not a societal sociologist, I guess is the word I'm trying to look for, not a sociologist, only what my initial gut reaction was. And I think a lot of the people in the audience are hearing it from that vantage point.
Vantage point meaning how you perceived it?
No. As an individual versus a sociologist.
Sociologist. Gotcha.
Just as a person versus a someone saying sociologically, this is how this plays out, kind of a thing.
Right. That would be interesting history.
Yeah, and it will. Trust me, books will be written.
Probably true. Yes.
Let me just toss a thought, as you and I have both studied ENLP and NLP and understand the role of the subconscious and the role of the unconscious. And I'm just tossing out, if Bishop Budde had had a negative experience with Donald Trump, was she unconsciously playing out some of that in that homily? I don't know the answer to that.
Playing it out in terms of setting boundaries, playing it out in terms of
the message.
And the message being, because I think it would be interesting to see, what did you perceive the message to be? What did I perceive the message to be?
Oh, that's a
and
whole
are they similar or are they different messages?
And that's a whole nother episode. and that, my friends, leads us to how hard, but yet how fulfilling these kind of growth experiences can be.
And notice that we weren't fabulous at this. I mean, we worked hard. We really had to work at this.
We did.
But I think some good stuff came out of it. Like, so could we do something quick?
Sure.
Could we share what we think the biggest thing we learned about the other person's position was?
You go first.
I will. I'd be happy to. I learned that you were more objecting to Bishop Budde's choice of timing and location as opposed to the message of mercy.
110%.
All right.
110%. I learned, and this I think I knew about you, but you have a way of viewing a whole bunch of complicated things and presenting it in a very gentle way.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Because that's not, and interestingly, that's not historically how people have viewed me. They viewed me as the bull in the china shop who, puts the crap on the table that has to be looked at and nobody wants to look.
But as we both grow, I mean, you and I are growing through this as well.
Oh, absolutely. This was very helpful.
It's very helpful for us, and hopefully for our audience, that we could take something that, can you imagine the dinner time conversations that were happening around the country and differences and all of those kind of things. And that if there was a way to gently to say, and like I said, in my mind, I kept thinking, she's thinking this, I'm thinking this. And I got to the point, neither of us were right.
No.
We're right.
We were making assumptions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the amount of, and you saw earlier on, the amount of energy that could be poured into something like this, when it was just like, I really didn't mind the message. I minded the delivery. And I absolutely got to that place. It wasn't there right that day, but I got to that place because I agree with what she was saying. I agree for all of that. In my head, that was not what that service was designed to do. And that's where it would be interesting to see the other services, and did I given false, did I have a false
sense of what it was supposed to be?
Well, and it gets to that expectation piece. Sure. Sure.
Right. Yes. And again, I didn't have the history of, what is a bishop's job, et cetera, et cetera. So I went to someone who would know to ask that question. Yeah. Because I didn't know.
And it will be interesting to see if a Republican is elected next time. I don't think they'll have that church service there.
And I think they would still. Simply because it's the tradition.
Sure, absolutely. And that's one of those things we won't know till we know.
We won't know till we know. Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So do a summary for us here, because we've taken, oh my gosh, this has been really fun though. I've enjoyed.
Very useful. Very useful. So basically what we did was we adopted the Braver Angels framework for listen, acknowledge, pivot, perspective. We picked a topic, the homily delivered by Bishop Budde on the inauguration day for President Trump. We worked through the listen, acknowledge, pivot, perspective steps, sometimes cycling back through them a couple of times.
Yeah.
Hopefully, some of this was very helpful to you in terms of conversations that you've either had and they didn't go very well, or conversations you've kind of been wanting to have and haven't done them yet.
Absolutely. And I would add, it's worth it.
Yes.
It's worth, and if you're uncomfortable and you don't feel like it's going well, then just pull back for a hair and go, wait a minute, I'm not sure this is going. I'm those emotions, those feelings, that amygdala hijack, all that piece of it. But I believe going into the conversation, having a commitment to the other person.
And saying it on the front end. I want to try something new. You and I sometimes struggle to talk about the things we disagree about. I want to try something new. Are you okay with that? Put it out there.
Yeah, for sure.
You're my guinea pig. We're having an experiment.
and be okay with the messiness of it. It can be messy. It can
be willing to suck at this, okay? Be willing to suck at it for a while.
And we've been at this for a while in our lives.
We have.
But we appreciate you coming along with us on this journey, the Common Ground Conversations, and subscribe, join with Braver.
Please put some comments.
Yes.
Put some comments. We need some grist for our mill.
Yeah. Lord knows we have a lot.
But we'd love to hear what you'd like to hear about.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.